Guys, everyone's Counter-Strike. It's happening. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? That is insane.
Wow, what the fuck?
It's going through, there's a hole now.
Yeah.
Somebody already discovered a game-breaking glitch, which allows you to go on top of the skyballs.
The game is fucked. Tracers still don't feel like they go where they're supposed to go when you're spraying. Spraying feels fucking weird. Counter-strafing doesn't fucking matter. You're on ice skates when you move half the time. We just got a boost bug patch that's been in the game since the beginning. It took them a year. The moment they do it, there's a new boost bug. The moment they remove the new boost bug, there's another one.
Counter-Strike 2 is in a shit state. Counter-Strike 2 is infested with cheaters.
You play all these other games, their ranking system's terrible. And then Valve comes out with something, and it's just the worst thing you've ever seen.
Do I like the game, bro? It's not ready yet. It's fucking trash right now. Sounds are bad, movement are bad.
I always believed Richard, bro, and it would appear all of what he said has come true.
What you like doesn't matter. If it's a deal breaker for you, fuck off.
So many people, content creators included, are just absolutely fed up with the state that the game currently is in. It is official, I quit.
Today marks the new era.
There are console commands which gave you wall hacks in the game.
It's fucked.
Counter-Strike, the legendary FPS game. The grandfather of the 5v5 bomb plant scenario. I think no one can deny the impact this franchise had on the FPS genre, especially CSGO. Although CSGO had a rough start, the game has soon become the standard for what a competitive shooter should be. The game felt raw, in a good way. The mechanics were simple and to the point, but with endless possibilities. The gameplay loop was so to the point and so addictive. Everything about the game was polished down to perfection. Movement, guns, sprays, grenades, you name it, it's perfect. Well, almost everything, but let's skim over that for a second. And when a game is just so perfect, with such a highly competitive community, it would be a crime not to set up a pro scene, with players of the highest level competing for millions of dollars. Counter-Strike had one of the largest esports scenes, with one of the largest prize pools for its winners. Yet there was a problem. No game can survive forever without moving forward, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive at this point was 11. It was getting to its teens, and its long old and outdated engine had been failing to support its way to puberty. The engine had been pushed to its absolute limits, and now there was a competitor. Although its competitor was unarguably the worst game, it appealed to a much wider audience that didn't care too much about its raw mechanics or extreme competition. And soon, Valorant had a fairly similar player count to CSGO. By 2022, Valorant was growing at a rapid pace, but this was one of the smaller problems for the players. CSGO players had to subject themselves to the 11-year-old engine, which still had its limitations. Although the gunplay and movement still felt miles better than Valorant's, the hit registration often felt sluggish and sometimes just didn't work. And other issues arose. One of these issues were the grenades, which would often glitch in weird ways, such as the Mirage window smoke or the grenade behind the smoke trick. Regardless of all this, CSGO was due for an update, a long overdue really. We needed an update that would solidify the game as the top dog of 5v5 bomb plant FPS games, and that would put Valorant in its rightful place as second. And on March 22nd, we finally got what we wanted. Counter-Strike 2 was finally revealed. Everybody was ecstatic about the upcoming game, and when a closed beta was announced, the excitement only grew. But the excitement was soon replaced with worry. Why? Because the beta was terrible. Hey, it's a beta. A beta is made to analyze the issues and fix them before the official release. Surely Valve would fix the problems after the beta. When the release date was announced, everybody was ready to play. The beta was still buggy and glitchy and bad, but surely Valve were just sitting on an update and then they would release it when the game was out. Oh god. Do we even need to talk about the issues? The guns felt terrible, the tick rate felt terrible, the sprays felt terrible, the movement felt terrible, the FPS felt terrible, everything felt terrible, the game was terrible. This is not the game we were waiting for. was this really a game that would replace the legendary CSGO and on which we were going to host million-dollar tournaments? The game crashed randomly, had horrid hit registration, and there were just game-breaking glitches everywhere. Nah, Valve just wanted to give the players a bit of a beta experience before rolling out the update that would fix everything, right? Right. Nothing changed. Absolutely nothing. In fact, if anything, CS2 kinda got worse. CS2 has officially solidified Valorant as the better game. And if you're going to tell me that CS2 is in a better state than Valorant right now, go get an MRI scan, something is missing. Not only did it take the problems of CSGO into it, it multiplied them, then added to them. Let's talk about the issues small to big real quick. Number 1, toxicity. Look, when I join a competitive game, I'm not looking to provide free therapy to someone's childhood drama, or listen to someone's political opinions, or just hear racial slurs or sexism. I join to click on heads because I have nothing better to do with my life. Just mute them. That's not the problem. They will actively throw and ruin games, or just ruin the vibe of the team. And even if it was as simple as muting them, you're missing out on potentially vital communication that may come from in between the 16 words that will get me cancelled. It's not like CS2 is the only one with this problem, but they could have at least made some rules and tried to enforce them. Like in Valorant, where you get muted for saying a slur in voice and in text chat. And sure, Valorant does go overboard sometimes, like banning the words retard. But I would rather have an overly positive team than one where I cannot understand what everybody is saying because everybody seems to sound like a dog. In Valorant, if someone says something bad, you can just report them and soon enough, they'll be punished. What about CS2? And this is an issue that has carried from CSGO straight to CS2. I have a genuine question right now. Does the report button even do anything? Does Valve even look into the reports, or is the button just purely cosmetic? Like, you click on it, it shows you the message, and then it goes straight into nowhere.
It lowers your trust factor.
Yes, and what does that do exactly? Nothing. I have never had a notification in CSGO that someone I reported has been banned or received some sort of punishment. Does that even exist, guys? Like, tell me, I don't know, like, genuine question, does that even exist? It doesn't matter if they were straight up cheating, b-hopping, walling, or yelling slurs. I have gotten nothing. Sure, there's no perfect solution to it, but I have one that will delete at least 50% of toxicity. Give Russians their own server. Like, seriously, we don't have to play with them. They don't have to play with us. They can play and speak their own language and be surrounded by toxic retards just like them. But of course, that's not going to happen. We're just gonna have to put up with the toxicity because Valve doesn't care enough to do anything.
Bruh, just play with some friends in 5-stack. You'll never run into toxic players.
Oh, my bad. That's a good idea, actually. Let me just... Wait. Oh. I wonder why. And what about people who do not have friends to play with? What about them? What's your solution? Sure, there are some cool players you meet along the way, but it's like a 1 out of 10 games thing. While 7 others are filled with toxic rats, and 1 is just silent no-com. And 5 are games with cheaters. But okay, we've stayed on this issue enough. Let's talk about content. Oh. There's none. I don't know how hard Valve hit their head when they decided to release a game with only like 30% of the content from CSGO. It's meant to be an upgrade, not a downgrade, Valve. Making a game and then deleting multiple game modes and never replacing them is not an upgrade. That's called being retarded. Give us an operation or a new game mode. It took them almost 5 months to just add a case, which isn't even content. Where's Flying Scoutsman? Where's retakes?
Yeah, we got join community servers.
Bro, I don't want to go and join a random ass server I found on the internet. I want to click a button and immediately get put in a game. Speaking of, for almost a decade now, Valve have been demonstrating just how incompetent they are in providing their players a good environment. So much so that platforms like Faceit have to exist to actually give players good servers, with good anti-cheat and an actually good ranking system. The fact that players have to register to a third-party program just to play the game shows just how stupid Valve are. And, you know, I'm stupid as well. I was sure that when CS2 would come out, they would finally create a good matchmaking environment with a good anti-cheat and a good tick rate, and we would be able to play the game without having to create some account on some random third-party platform. I guess I give Valve too much credit and faith. The ranking system is dog shit. The matchmaking experience sucks dick. There is no anti-cheat to speak of. VAC Live is a piece of dead meat. And you know, when FACEIT did finally make a platform for CS2, they even set the tick rate to 128 to fix Valve's dog shit sub-tick technology. But Valve just locked the game to 64? Now, that's a prime example of anti-competitive behavior, which is illegal. But even then, Valve failed to achieve anything, and people that played FACEIT remained on FACEIT. And really, if you want the best experience, you will just have to go and play FACEIT, because matchmaking in CS2 is somehow even worse than it was in CSGO. Something that wasn't an issue in CSGO was the FPS. Performance-wise, CSGO blew it out of the water. The only game that can even muster some sort of competition was Minecraft with performance mods. The default game sucks. Yet somehow Valve managed to mess up something that the game was hailed for. CSGO was pronounced the game that could run on anything, even a toaster. So how is it that its successor, aka the game that should be better in every way, fails miserably in this department? Not only does CS2 run as shit, its performance on day one crashes, stuttering, lag spikes, etc. And what's even worse is that it feels like with every update, the FPS only gets worse. It used to be that even players without graphics cards could run the game on their integrated graphics. Now try that.
Oh well, you can actually run CS2 on integrated graphics.
Yeah, on lower frame rates with newer processors. Look, tell me about how the engine is new and it's not Valve's issues that someone is using a 20-year-old computer, but Valorant can run just fine on the oldest integrated graphics ever, and CS2's predecessor could even better than Valorant. So what is the reason for CS2 just abandoning the more frames, more games idea? This is the reason I quit, or at least the largest factor, because you know what? I don't have that terrible of a computer. Sure, it's outdated, but it works in all games except CS2, where I cannot run more than 60 frames per second. And look, it would be fine if CS2 was like a RPG with amazing graphics. No, it's a competitive shooter. Nobody cares about the graphics. And even on lowest graphics, you just run like shit. But let's look at what made most people quit. Cheaters. Look, I don't care if you're brainwashed by people like Richard Lewis into believing that cheating in CS2 isn't that big of a deal, because if as many people complain about it as there are, including pros and semi-pros and content creators, you bet your ass it's an issue. Hell, remember Box from the Minecraft video I made? Yeah, you're right, he also plays CS2 matchmaking. Give us an anti-cheat, not an excuse for it. Valorant's anti-cheat is rootkit, it sells information to shut up. Your phone listens to all your conversation and constantly pings towers to track where you are. Windows 11 comes with AI that will listen to your conversations actively. Google sells your information. What are you here trying to tell me about an anti-cheat that has literally never been proven to send any of your info to anybody? Also, FACEIT runs a kernel anti-cheat as well.
Oh, Valorant is owned by Tencent, Tencent Chinese company. Oh, no.
Okay, and what's the difference in a Chinese company taking and selling your data and an American one? In fact, honestly, I'm more comfortable with China, because if my data gets taken by an American, he will sell it to everybody. He will sell it to absolutely everybody. But in China, they'll just probably sell it to the government. Sure, they might also sell it to some other people. Honestly, I trust Chinese traditionalist more than any American liberal or honestly Republican either. I hate them all. If you're saying that you hate something just because it's Chinese, why? What, has the American propaganda worked on you and now you're afraid of China? Because I'll tell you this, Americans can be just as bad as the Chinese when it comes to your personal information. We've seen that. Plus, most of the Chinese kids are busy getting their kids a job at a factory, so They can't be asked to look at some random dude's information. And if you're gonna tell me that Valorant still has cheaters, yeah, except they're banned quicker and they're much less blatant to the point that it doesn't even feel like they're cheating. I never even had a single moment where I was like 75% sure that someone was cheating. In CS2, it's like every other game. And if you still dislike the idea of a company installing a program deep onto your system to prevent cheaters, in Richard Lewis's own words,
fuck off!
And finally, the last point. CS2 just isn't CSGO. The Counter-Strike fans have long fell in love with the gameplay loop. Most don't search for anything new or too groundbreaking. Sure, they don't mind a different spin to the game, but at the end of the day, all we wanted from CS2 were upgraded graphics and less bugs and a newer engine, maybe better performance. Got one, sacrificing FPS, and didn't get anything else. CS2 is terrible. Mechanically, it's a different game. Feeling-wise, it's a different game. Like, input delay has been sparkled across the unblemished game to create this. Bugs appear in much higher quantities than CSGO, and it's a shame that a billion-dollar company who had 11 years to develop a good game now had yet another year and fixed absolutely nothing. I want you to tell me a significant change to CS2 that came since its first release. 2 new maps? A case? The game modes they removed in the first place? What about the shitty gunplay, movements, FPS, all that? How did it come that this is the replacement to the greatest competitive shooter in history? And worse is that this is a game where people host $1 million tournaments, and we are playing it on what feels like a half-functioning mod to CSGO. Valve forced its players to play a buggy and laggy mess and compete for millions of dollars. Isn't that just insane? To push your community into a game that is really a different game that is just skinned and created to mimic the patterns of another and still fails on that mission. It's really just disappointing that one of the greatest competitive shooters in history is honored in such a terrible way. It feels like Valve are just dancing on CSGO's grave and pissing on it. And look, if you still think that CS2 is a good game, honestly, I don't know what to tell you, man. I've said everything I had to say, and at this point, I think you're just dumb. That's it. CS2 is dog shit, and it's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't, but that's how it is. So, I guess it's time to migrate to Valorant, guys. GG's. We had a good run. It was a long time, almost 20 years. I think it was actually 20 years. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. And I still don't know how to make outros, but I can't be asked to scream in this one, so I'll just hit my mic a couple of times.